Seahawks fans, wherever you may be, welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Join your host, Bill Alvstad, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Seahawks fans, welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, here with coming off a win. How you doing, man?
Coming off a big win that was the most
signature win of the season.
Well, it was, I don't want to call it a signature win because you got to actually beat somebody good for it to be a signature win. But it was the most stress-free Seahawks Sunday probably since the Super Bowl championship game.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
it was nice.
Yeah.
I mean, 40-3, I'll take it. I know it was against the now 0-13 Jets, winless Jets coming into the game, still winless. Nonetheless, I think has some significance. I want to talk about that with you as we progress in the show. And then we get to move to a slightly more interesting contest this coming Sunday against the Washington football team. And got plenty to talk about with regards to that. And first up, though, we're going to just get into a couple of little things. Seattle wins 40-3 over the Jets, moves to 9-4. Jamal Adams with 8.5 sacks in 9 games kind of sets the record there for defensive backs. Although, we blitz him more than any other defensive back ever in the history of football to get those numbers. But nonetheless, he should be proud of that. And, regardless
it's still
of where
an
we
NFL
get
record.
Sacks, well, regardless of where we get them, there's still sacks. There's still pressures.
He still has the NFL record for most sacks in a season by a defensive back with 8.5. There's still games left to be played.
And like I said, he got those in 9 games. That's crazy.
And he missed 3 games to injury. And so he's having a great year. He really is. And he is not the reason why the defense has struggled at times this year. The
defense is vastly improving, and he's definitely one of the reasons why they have.
Yes,
they
are vastly improving.
They went from giving up 30 some odd points a game to 16 some odd points a game in the last 5 games.
Well, and then they gave up 3 against the Jets, which, okay, there were also 3 missed field goals, but even if they make the field goals, it's only 12, and there were no touchdowns, and so that's playing good defense in the NFL. And I know it's the Jets. We're going to keep – you're going to hear that phrase from us over and over again in the show. I know it's the Jets.
I don't think you're going to hear it from me very much. Football is football, and in the NFL, it's hard to win. And the Jets have had – well, we'll get into that. Russell Wilson, first QB in history with a winning record in his first 9 seasons. He's also has more wins than any other quarterback in the first 9 seasons as well, and he's adding on to those. Again, we've got 3 more wins. We've got 3 more wins to go. 3 more games to go in the regular season to add to that pile. So that's awesome. Injury front. Didn't hear much from Pete this week. He usually gives a press conference on Mondays to kind of go over those initial readouts as far as injuries are concerned, and just mentioned the usual suspects with regards to injuries and kind of the comings and goings there. Quentin Dunbar sounds like he's going to practice this week, possibly give it a go Sunday. It'll be towards the end of the week before we know his status. It'll be nice to have him back to add to the pile of what has now become a pretty, average or slightly above average in the last 5 games. Defensive backfield for the Seahawks, and he just kind of adds to that. And if he's healthy, I think he can be a quality player.
When he's healthy, Quentin Dunbar is a very good cornerback. He has not been healthy this year, and so this year he has been a pretty bad cornerback.
It's so far it's been hard to evaluate him in this defense. I just don't know what we have or what we don't have. Like for example, it's a contract year for him. What do you do with Quentin Dunbar in the offseason? Maybe these injuries in the long run, maybe they help the Seahawks a little bit
they kill his market value.
Well, because he gets a 1-year deal next year with the Seahawks, and it's it's a $3 or $4 million deal as opposed to a $8 to $10 million deal multi-year. So the investment would be short, dollars would be short. Seahawks get another year to evaluate that, especially given the uncertainty around Griffin and that contract status.
Well, and Griffin, since he came back from his injury, he's played well. He's been part of the reason for the resurgence of this defense. And I know that he didn't really play well before his injury, so we were a little like, I don't know, when he came back. But he's stepped up and has been better. A couple of really big plays down in the end zone in this game. So he's been better. They got Adams back, and he's been a big lift, and they're getting good play from Reed, Amadi in the slot, and even Flowers has stepped up and played better. So the defensive backfield, which at one point looked like it was just an absolute mess of lack of talent and just bad performance, has played really well for the last month. And getting Dunbar back, it should help that, assuming he's healthy. Yeah. If he's not fully healthy with that knee, they shouldn't play him, because they saw what happens when they tried.
What about Flowers? Do you know what the status is on that?
No, I don't have an update.
I didn't hear an update either. He wasn't one of the names mentioned.
Yeah, he was. From last week, we thought he had a chance. He didn't. Reed played, but without an update on that, we just kind of have to revert back to what we heard last week, which was that we'll see how things go as he tests it, and he could be ready to play, and probably won't be. Probably has another week.
Given the status of the game that we played this last Sunday against the Jets, we were able to give Carlos Dunlap another week to try to heal that little foot injury he's got. Pete Carroll was didn't really say exactly what it was. He just said it was fairly unique, a unique injury. But it sounds like Dunlap's going to give it a go as far as practice this week, and we'll see as far as playing in the game. I think that we could use him in this game. But I don't know that it would be terrible if we didn't have him, given the fact that it's the Washington football team's defense that I'm concerned about this week, not their offense.
Yeah, their offense isn't anything to worry about. And it looks like Alex Smith might not even play. And so then you're looking at Haskins at quarterback again, and he's a guy that's going to complete 50% of his throws and throw some interceptions, and he's a great runner, and he's dynamic in that way, but he, as a quarterback, he's just not good. Yeah. If Alex Smith can play and he gets in there, that can be different. I mean,
you add a dimension, to their offense with Alex Smith, and without that, they're just one dimensional. They're a running team anyway. And then they had their Antonio. I can't remember his name right off the top of my head now. Their running back, they got their rookie guy. He's been doing really well this year. He was out this last week with an injury. Not sure what his status is for this week. Our good friend McKissick was their primary runner this last game. So we'll see.
And he's not much. He's a receiver out of the backfield. He's not much of a runner. So
right. But he has some yards this year. I think he ran 11 carries for 68 yards in this last game against the 49ers. And then Antonio, oh my goodness, I'm going to miss it again. Antonio Gibson.
Yep.
Gibson is the guy that normally has been carrying for them. And he's got like 600 or 700 yards on the season. So.
Yeah, he's he is not likely to play this week. He's got turf toe, which is actually ligament damage caused by hyperextending the toe. And that is a slow recovering injury. So he's not likely to play this week.
And then Shell. our right tackle. Sounds like, they took him out early in this game as a precaution because he kind of felt some twinges still in his injury, and sounds like he's no worse for wear and is going to practice this week and possibly be back. That's good news for the Seahawks because we're going to need it against the defensive front for Washington this week. Rashad Penny is going to practice this week, and Pete said he's practicing like he's going to play. And so we'll see. It's still a game time decision for him. It'll be interesting to see the roster moves now that folks are starting to get healthy and being reintroduced to the roster again. Dunlap was out this last week. Somebody else took his spot. Shell was out. Abue has been out at right tackle. Penny's coming back. It sounds like Greg Olsen is going to practice. It sounded like we were going to lose him for the year. Sounds like we might get him back for the last couple of games if needed.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Gordon's going to practice beginning next week after this game. So all of these players are awesome, but we've got players now that are starting to play well and gel with the current situation. And now we're going to have to jumble that up a little bit. Probably good on the whole, but how do you see the roster kind of coming together just at the right time before we get to the home stretch?
Well, I mean, obviously, this is a team that's just been, decimated by injuries at times throughout this year. And to get guys healthy and to get guys back would be awesome. But at the same time, like what you were saying, like, I mean, Dunlap's the starter. He doesn't change anything, right? He comes back, he's inserted in there, and it's an upgrade. So I'm not concerned about that. But when you talk about, Penny and Gordon specifically, that would be taking snaps away from other people who have been playing well. I mean, you're going to give
Dunbar. Dunbar comes back. What do you do with Ugo Amadi and Reed and
DJ Reed? Yeah. So if you like with Penny, if you're going to give him snaps, are you really going to take Carlos Hyde off the field and take his snaps away from him? Because Carson's going to get his, so that's not the question. But
I would actually initially. Now it's a completely different animal in the playoffs, and we'll see. But for right now, I take a little bit away from Hyde, get Hyde completely healthy, and keep him healthy. Give Penny some reps so that he can get some reps, and then you've got a three-headed monster that teams will need to try to figure out in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to mess with what's working offensively, and because
Carson's going to be the guy. I mean, Carson's going to take anywhere from 12 to 20 snaps, depending on how the game goes. And then everyone else is going to pick up a little bit. So you're going to have 6, handoffs to Hyde, 6 to Penny, a couple of, of throws to the third down back. And that's going to be about it at the most. So no big deal.
And the same goes with Gordon. Like, are you going to take Swain and Moore off the field to get Gordon some snaps? I think you do.
I do. Yeah.
But at the same time, like, both those guys have played well. There's a chemistry brewing, and I don't want to set that back.
You're not going to make or break a game though by taking Moore out. Maybe. I mean, Moore's been a touchdown machine this year. Okay. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if you can develop some rapport with Josh Gordon before the games really start to count, that could give you another weapon that you could legit have in the playoffs that other teams haven't schemed against. And, it'd be a good thing. You take, in the playoffs, I think Swain takes a back seat and you end up having 4 wide receivers in Moore, Gordon, Metcalf, and Lockett. And that's a great core right there. You had Olsen back and Disley. You try to slow that thing down.
Yeah, the Olsen getting him back is, I don't think that changes much. I mean, they've been playing Disley and Hollister, and Hollister hasn't produced in the same way that he did a year ago, and hasn't been as active in the game plan the way Olsen was prior to the injury. So I think that you'd bring him back. I don't know if you'd lose anything. So I think that one would be one that they'd be happy to get
Parkinson
back.
would be the guy that would be the odd guy out.
Yeah, and Parkinson hasn't really played except for
he did look good on a couple of catches.
Yeah, he got a chance in this one, but it wasn't Russell Wilson throwing to him. It was Geno Smith once the blowout was secured.
That was awesome. Let's talk about the Jets game.
Let's do that.
Yeah. So going into this game, here's the deal. The expectations were high. Seattle was going to win by double digits, and anything less was going to be a complete catastrophe. So this game, to me, it actually sets up to where I think that is a little bit more significant than people are giving the Seahawks credit for. Granted, yes, it was the Jets. Okay, there's my one time I said it's the Jets. However, we did what we needed to do, and we did it convincingly, resoundingly, both on offense and defense. And you got to give the team credit for that after coming off of a horrible, horrible win or loss against the Giants the week prior. Wilson throws for 4 touchdowns to 4 different receivers. Carson had a great day running the ball, 12 carries for 76 yards, Hyde 15 for 66. They ran for 174 yards on the ground. They were 5 for 6 in the red zone, 28 first downs, scored on 6 of 8 possessions with the starters in the game. The Jets had come in scoring 27 or more points in 3 out of its last 4 games. They only had 20 yards in the second half. The defense held the New York Jets to 185 total yards. Darnold was completely insignificant. Seattle's now allowing 16.2 yards or 16.2 points per game in the last 5 games. And 3 straight with 17 or fewer points. So it's just not the Jets. It's over now a pretty good spectrum of opponents and games that the defense is really improving. And to be able to score 40 and hold another opponent to 3, that's a blowout. I don't care who you do it against in the NFL. That's hard to do. And I think, anything less from the Seahawks, fans would have been yelling, if we would have won 27 to, let's say 12, they score all their field goals. That would have been completely unacceptable because
27 to 12 is still more than a 2 touchdown.
I know, but it would have
victory.
been, but given the discrepancy of the opponent, it would have been a disappointment. And so I think it was a perfect score for the team to get right, to correct some things on offense. I think the quick passing game thing really helped them. I think they need to carry that forward. So there were some good things out of this game, I think, that you can take and build on. And against the Washington Football Club, as we move forward, I think that's going to be a real nice test. Yeah, they've got a losing record, but their defense is top 3 in the NFL, and so it'll be interesting to see how we come up on that game.
Yeah, I mean, like I said,
what's your take on the opponent? And
I think there's a lot to be gained by playing a team that's that bad and doing what you're supposed to do, and that's blow them out. The last thing you want to do is to look bad, even if you get the win in a game against a team that's that bad, because you don't answer any questions. You leave lots of doubt. You really leave a lot of question, both in the fans, but also in some of the players' minds as to how good are we? Whereas you come out against a bad team and you really just expose them as a bad team. That's what good teams do. And that's what the Seahawks did. So there's a lot to be said about the game. I think some of the, you look at that stats and this went well and that went well and all this kind of stuff. And I just have a hard time saying any of those without the asterisks of, yeah, but it's the Jets. Because they're that bad. They're poorly coached. Adam Gase and company just they should not be, he should not be running an NFL franchise. They're poorly coached. There's a major talent deficit. They're not good at any phase of the game. Sam Darnold looks like a mess. They had 20 yards of offense in the second half. That's it.
Against our third and fourth string guys.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean,
yeah.
What I did like in this game is the Seahawks came out. They did what they wanted to do. They didn't have to come out and stumble a little bit, make some adjustments, you know, kind of get things rolling. They came out and did what they wanted to do. They wanted to throw the ball early. They did. They wanted to run the ball in the middle and the late, and they did. They put up points, and then they got all the stars off the field. And you saw Geno Smith for more than a quarter. He was throwing it to Colby Parkinson and not Will Disley at tight end. DJ Dallas was the guy running it, not Chris Carson. And they continued to put up points, even with the backups in. You had Kyle Wheeler move. He was playing at right tackle. He moved over to left tackle, and so they could get Dwayne Brand out of there. And Kyle Fuller, the backup center, was playing right tackle. And they still managed to move the ball, score points, all those kind of things. It was one of those get right games. It was one of those games where the backups got some meaningful snaps where they could, you know, look at the film and learn from and self-scout a little bit, which that's more important than I think most fans realize. And, you know, all these things help going forward, but can we expect that level of performance?
Well, we can't expect
or
that.
the week after.
I do.
No, because they're going to be playing the Jets then. They'll be playing a team that's actually
here's
confident.
where you and I diverge just a little bit. Yeah, I do. I do expect them to be able to execute plays in the same way. There was a podcast, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago where we talked about it doesn't really matter who we play. We're playing against ourselves in a sense, because our offense is good enough to be able to play against anybody and be able to move the ball and score points. And we said the same thing about the defense kind of coming into its own, et cetera, et cetera. I do feel like this team should be able to execute against any other NFL quality opponent. And yeah, it was maybe easier to execute against the Jets because of the talent deficit. But nonetheless, I think there are certain things that you take away from this that should enable you to run certain things in certain situations against certain personnel and schemes to be able to have success regardless. And so that's what I'm looking for out of this game is how does it translate to the Washington Football Club, who has either one of the best or the very best front four in all of the NFL. And
yeah, their front four is good, but the rest of their defense is, well, it's not special.
Good. It's pretty good.
But the front four is
number 4 defense DVOA in the NFL. I mean,
true. I'm just saying, but
take away too much out of this team.
But it a lot of that is generated by the front four. It's like the Rams from a few years ago, right? When they were just elite all across the front, and then the rest of their defense was meh. Yeah. But the defense overall was good because the front four was so disruptive against the run and the pass. And you know, Washington's done that same thing in building. They've got a great front four. They're going to give Seattle fits because they're just really good up front. They're not great behind them. True. But they're so good up front that they're going to be disruptive. Wilson's going to be under pressure. The running game's going to struggle to find holes. And you have to do things to neutralize the front four. You really have to. If you can do that, if you can, you know, keep an extra guy, max protect a little bit, make sure the running backs are chipping on the way out to help the tackles against the defensive ends, you can do things to keep Russell Wilson from, you know, being on his back all day. And then you can take advantage of the fact that they don't have a lot of talent beyond that. But if you try and just line up and go, we're just going to do whatever. We're just going to do things normally. That front four is going to eat you because they're good.
Yeah. Well, they've got 5 number 1 picks. Mm-hmm. Not number 1, but, you know, first round picks. on that defensive line, and
including their last 2 first-round picks, with Montez Sweat and
Chase Young.
oh yeah, the name. Who is it?
Chase Young.
Chase Young. God, why can I not remember it? Yeah, their last 2 picks, the last 2 first rounders, have 12 and a half sacks. They've looked very good, very active, very tough to stop. They're very talented at defensive end, and
yeah,
that's going to be a problem.
They had 4 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 11 pass defense, 12 cornerback hits, and 2 touchdowns. That was their defense.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see how we do there, because Ryan Kerrigan is a backup. He's been there for a long time. Montez Sweat, like you said, Jonathan Allen, probably one of my favorite defensive tackles in all of the NFL. Daron Payne, Chase Young. I mean, that front. I mean, anybody would want that. And they're young and hungry and kind of coming into their own right now. So it'll be interesting to see.
Kerrigan was one of those guys that around the trading deadline when the Seahawks picked up Dunlap, we were like, go get him. He's a pass rusher. He's a guy that can give you, be a rotational guy, give you 20 snaps a game. Go get him. And they decided to get Dunlap and wait for Snacks Harrison to get in shape. And it turned out to be something that works. They didn't have to give up more resources, and Harrison's been good, and the defense has been significantly better since Harrison started playing.
Yeah, no doubt. The Washington defense is ranked 4th in DVOA. They're ranked 4th in yards allowed at 313.5 yards a game. Just to give you an idea, the Seahawks are at about 280 in the last 5 games. They're also at 16.2 points per game in the last 5 games. Their 4th ranked defense is 21.2 points per game. Just to kind of give you a comparison, but they rank 9th or better in the following categories: yards per game, passing yards per game, interception rate, sack rate, points allowed, third down percentage, red zone percentage is number 1 in the NFL, 10th in rushing yards allowed, 7th in passer rating allowed. The defense is good, Keith. I'm just saying, and it does start up front. I mean, that front allows their back end to be not as good talent wise, but it makes them as good as they can be.
Yeah, I mean, they're effective because they don't have to cover tightly for 5 seconds. They've got to cover tightly for 2.5. And then the front 4 is killing a quarterback. And it does make everyone around them look better. I'm just saying, from a talent perspective, I don't think that anyone in their back 7 is great, but their front 4 is so good it doesn't matter. So
it's interesting because Washington is still a team that has only got 6 wins, so they're 6-7 on the year. They lost their first 5, or they started 1-5, and then they've kind of turned it around 5-2 in the last 7. When you look at their wins, they're holding their opponents to under 20 points a game. So in their wins, against the Eagles, 17 allowed, Cowboys 3 points, Bengals 9, Cowboys 16, Steelers 17, 49ers 15 points. So while the Steelers are the only quality opponent,
I would say find me a good team in that group. Right. I mean, the Steelers are, but they're offensively they've become a mess.
Yeah, that's what you have to look at, because those wins came against basically crap. I mean, the 49ers are decent, especially they beat them last week. It wasn't like they beat the 49ers in the 3rd game of the year where they were truly awful. And the Steelers, so they've got a couple of good quality wins in a row. In fact, they've won 4 in a row. Okay, but the losses, you take a look at the losses, they've given up 30, 34, 31, 30, 20, 23, and 30 points. So, and those are against the Cardinals, Browns, Ravens, Rams, Giants, Lions. So those are all good offenses for the most part.
Not the Giants.
Well,
the Giants.
Yeah, but the Giants scored 20 and 23. They were the lowest scoring losses that they did have. But the points scored in those losses are for the Washington Football Club are 15, 20, 17, 10, 19, 20, 27. Those were all losses.
The offense in Washington isn't good.
Yeah. They've only scored over 30 points one time.
Yeah.
Against the Cowboys.
And the Cowboys are bad.
Yeah. And every other time their high score has been 27. Mm-hmm. So this is not a great offense.
Nope.
This actually lines up pretty decent for the Seahawks. You know,
well, look at the 49er game, right?
Yeah.
Remember to count 14 of those points to their defense,
absolutely.
Not to their offense.
Correct. Absolutely.
That was not because they had 2 defensive touchdowns.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Chase Young had a fumble recovery, returned 45 yards for a touchdown. They had a 48-yard interception return, pick 6.
Yep.
In that game.
And
but
so
otherwise, offense was really not good against the 49er defense.
Yeah.
And a lot of teams struggle against 49ers. But Washington's inept on. So I have a good feeling about our defense matched up against Washington's offense. And I think our offense against their defense, we're one of those good teams on offense that Washington struggles with. Running straight at them, I think is effective. I think we can put some running yards on the. This is going to be one of those games to me where it's fairly balanced because you want to be able to counteract that aggressive defense, and running straight at them is going to help do that. Some play action in the quick passing game. I think trying to search for pining your hopes on the long ball for Russell Wilson in this game is too much to ask. And I don't.
Yeah, because he's not going to have the time.
That's not going to be good. It's not going to end up being.
That'd be terrible coaching.
Yes, I agree.
Because
now you pick your spots after some things start opening up and working. Then you can kind of pick your spots. I mean, 3 or 4 of those kind of 25-yard plus plays a game might do it for you. But I think you just grind these guys. You win the time of possession. You wear that defense down a little bit, and it's a game of attrition at that point because you're going to outscore them.
Yeah, I mean that's what I think is you what they can do here is to neutralize the front 4 by getting the ball out of Russell Wilson's hands quickly, by getting that short, quick passing game going early. Because
we have the players to do that.
Yeah, and we've done it at times this year, and then they go away from it and they start trying to, hurl it 40 yards downfield every play. And if you do that, it's not going to work because they're not going to have enough time to get that far downfield because the front 4 is that good, and they're going to make it really hard on Russell Wilson.
Let's talk about them on defense. Let's talk about like Chase Young and a couple of those other guys. The Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen. Are you concerned? I mean, you're going to want to double team and figure out Chase Young, and Shell is going to be the guy over there at right tackle. And if he's kind of not
healthy,
and he's not, you're going to be playing Wheeler again over there or Abouye. And that's the doomsday scenario for Russell.
Well, what then happens is that Will Disley becomes a right tackle, and you play with 2 people. Basically, one of your tight ends does not go out into passing routes. They just stay in, and you double team.
How impressive of a specimen is Chase Young?
Oh man, he's the defensive end version of DK Metcalf. Right? Have you seen the pictures of DK Metcalf, like when he was training for the combine, shirt off, and he's just
Chase Young's a
muscles on muscles.
Chase Young is not one of those guys that's like 259 pounds or whatever. This guy's like 275 pounds that can get after it. Like he reminds me of Dunlap in a way, except for he's a little bit more stout.
He's younger and more athletic.
Yeah, younger, more athletic.
I mean, he's not human. He's, like I said, he's the defensive end version of DK Metcalf. Just physically, there isn't another one quite like him.
And he's starting to figure it out too. Yeah, it's interesting. It's good. Interesting. So, and then Montez Sweat, And Montez Sweat is the speed guy that's a little lighter,
Mm-hmm.
that is your Leo kind of guy.
Yep.
And it'll be interesting to see how they work in tandem. And then Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne at defensive tackle.
In the middle.
Yeah, Jonathan Allen is a force that can get after the quarterback as well from the interior, even though he's like 320 pounds or whatever.
Yep. Damian Lewis is gonna like the fact that he is
and Posick
has been in there and has been playing well, and he got dinged up a little bit at one point, but he's fully healthy and good. He can be a difference maker by shutting down some of that in the middle, and will allow Posick to help out whoever's playing left guard, whether it be Lupati or Simmons, who seem to rotate fairly regularly now, even when they're both healthy. So allowing Posick to help on that other side will benefit Russell Wilson, because the guys need help. I mean, you need to double team whoever's on the next to right tackle.
The pass rush win rate for this front four is just, it kind of freaks me out a little bit. I'll have to be honest. I mean, there's not too many defenses that would intimidate me as far as what Seattle would be able to face. I mean, there's a handful. The Rams seem to have our number. And there's a couple other teams.
It's just Aaron Donald has everybody's number.
Yeah, there's a couple other teams that slow us down a little bit, but this particular front seems to give Russell Wilson the most trouble. A team with speed, a team that can rush you from the inside out, and kind of contain him a little bit, if you will. The thing that Seattle has going for it is Montez Sweat and Chase Young are just 2 years in the league or less, and sometimes you get undisciplined just because you're so intense, and it'll be interesting to see if they can figure out a way to counteract their aggressiveness.
I'd like to see them
blitz much with this defense.
No, I want to see them use some misdirection, roll the pocket, do things to help the offensive line and Russell Wilson out by not just having him drop straight back. There are all sorts of things that they can do, half rollouts and moving the pocket, or play action, things that will keep the defensive line from, trying to kill Russell Wilson, and give him more time.
Stay away from those plays that get blown up in the backfield, like before they even get started. Like, how do we stay away from that? Because it seems like that's been an issue in the last several weeks.
It's been an issue for the last several years. And ultimately, I don't know, because you have a offensive line which is better than it's been in the past, but when it does fail, it tends to fail spectacularly. And so
like it's susceptible to a bull rush.
Yeah, I mean,
a little bit.
Like Mike Lupati's just susceptible, and so that becomes part of the problem. You've got to get him out.
Posick's strength has always been an issue.
Yeah, and he's more of a guy that's good at moving laterally and blocking outside. You can pull him as a center, and he's very mobile and smart and does those things, but he's not super strong right at the point of attack. And there's
how do we
like
successfully run the ball against this team then?
Honestly, I think you got to set up some outside zone, and you need to set it up with Chris Carson, because he is the most decisive at setting his feet and going. And
if you can get these guys to over pursue a little bit, you've got some cutback lanes.
Yep, and you just got to get them moving laterally, and not straight up the field, and you got to block it right, and you got to cut on the backside so there's not the pursuit, and then you just have to execute it. You also have to expect that you're not going to be able to run the ball like you would against the Jets, because they're hard to run against, and they're going to have penetration, and they're going to blow some stuff up in the backfield. They will. You're not going to stop it, because their front four is better than your offensive line. So they will get penetration and blow things up, but not every play. It'll happen here and there, and you just have to take it and move on and do a lot of running on second down when it's second and short. So that way, if it does get blown up, you still have third down, right?
One of the most impressive things to come out of that Jets game was our third down plays. I thought even on third and long, we were completing plays and so forth. Of course, that has everything to do with the protections and all that kind of stuff. But
and the Jets,
yeah.
There were some cool plays. There some cool play designs. One of the things that worked well early on in the year when the offense was really rolling was on those third down plays where, you sprint right option would be the play call where you've got Wilson on the outside and you've got someone short, usually a tight end, for him to hit, and they will block and then come out. And so you run some different things in there and you really make it hard on the defense to figure out whether Wilson's running or whether he's going to throw, and how do you cover that? And they did a lot of that stuff early, and then teams saw it on tape and realized, wow, they do this a lot, and they figured out how to stop it, and then it stopped working, and the offense stopped working. And in this game against the Jets, what they did is they brought it back, but they brought it back with wrinkles, and now you had wide receivers that were coming in motion, being the player out in the flat rather than the tight end coming out after a block. So they're doing it that way, and they had some run, have a running back that would step up and be that player coming over in the flat in front of Wilson when he's doing that sprint out option play. And when they do those things and they get more creative with it, it does make it harder. And I like the fact that they went back to something that worked early and hadn't worked in a while, but they went back to it in a way that was new. And they need to continue to do that. They need to find ways where you can get Wilson on the edge with a couple of options, because it makes it really hard on the defense to account for. And he's mobile enough to pick up yards. If you just want to sit back and cover and you don't account for him, he'll pick up the 8 yards and run out of bounds. And if you step up on him, then you're leaving someone behind you open. And so you just have to get to that and not be so predictable about it, which is what they were doing there for a while.
Yeah, I think there's some opportunity there for the Seahawks to have good success against the Washington defense. I think it's going to take some time. I think that the first half is just going to be kind of one of those slog fest things. In the second half, it opens up a little bit. Let's talk about the Seahawks defense, the improving Seahawks defense, who could possibly be getting Carlos Dunlap back this week, as well as Quentin Dunbar. And what those additions, with the way that they're playing now, our linebackers are playing really good. Our defensive line played well, even without Dunlap in this last game. But overall, the trend is definitely on the upswing. And then you go in and face the Washington
this is more
team.
of the defense that we expected when we looked at the talent on the roster in the offseason. Because we know the back end was going to be. Well, I mean, it had the opportunity to be great, but that didn't materialize because of all the injuries and everything. But you have Adams, who's a Pro Bowler. Diggs is a Pro Bowler, although he hasn't played like it this year. Griffin's a Pro Bowl talent, although he didn't play like it early in the year. Dunbar was a Pro Bowler, but he didn't play like it because of his knee. And so you had all these injuries and problems and things, and it took some time for everyone to figure things out. But Adams is playing really well right now. Diggs is playing better. Griffin's back healthy and playing great. The linebackers, KJ and Bobby have been great, and then Jordan Brooks has really come on and has been a big part
of this game too that got taken away by a penalty, but it was awesome.
But he has been part of the reason why this defense has improved, is because he actually is got more playing time and then made the most of it and has improved. So the defense was better because he was playing more, and then he got better.
Yeah, and Reed and Nugo Amadi are playing some of the best.
Which is why
our defense.
I'm not super excited about Dunbar coming back, because I like what I see from Reed and Amadi, and I don't want to mess with that. And in part because Dunbar was so bad before he went on IR. And I know it was the knee, and if he's playing, it's because the knee's better. But he was so bad, and the two kids have been so good. Like, don't mess with it. Just keep it rolling. And worry about getting Dunbar fully up to speed later. Right now, I just want to see the defense continue to excel.
So the defense could have some opportunities in this game for generating some turnovers.
Oh, yeah.
The Washington offense is just as bad as the Jets offense.
It is.
And then you've got Alex Smith. I love Alex Smith. I love that comeback story this year. But he went out in the last game with a strained calf, did not return. Dwayne Haskins came in and played. But Dwayne Haskins started the year for a while. Then Allen came in. Allen got hurt, went out on IR for the year. Alex Smith came in. Alex Smith now has a strained calf, may not be able to go, although they're optimistic. We heard the same thing about the Jets quarterback coming into the game as well. But Alex Smith, I don't know that it makes any difference, to be completely honest with you. Alex Smith was 8 for 19, 57 yards and an interception before he went out of that game against the 49ers. Haskins come in 7 or 12, 51 yards and a sack, threw an interception as well, but get called back on a penalty. And then the rushing, they want to be able to rush the ball, but when they get behind in games, they don't, they just kind of fall apart because they don't have anything in the passing game. Now they do have one of my favorite wide receivers to come out in the draft in the last few years, Terry McLaren. He's got 73 catches for 1,000 yards this year and 3 TDs. But
yeah,
they don't have anything else.
They don't have anything else. You cover McLaren and you're set. Their top running backs out. I don't like their offensive line. And you're right. It really doesn't matter who's playing quarterback because the talent around him is so bad. But the reason why I would be more concerned with Alex Smith is because he's a veteran and he is less likely to make the stupid mistake. Now, yes, he has thrown some interceptions and he doesn't have the greatest arm and, all the things that have been Alex Smith since he was drafted. But, he's a guy that he's got that veteran savvy, and I would be worried about it.
And pick up first downs.
Yeah, and I would be more worried about that. Haskins is going to break a few more big plays because he's more athletic and really can run and do some special things that way. But he's also going to make a lot of dumb mistakes. He's going to miss wide open receivers. He's going to throw the ball to the Seahawks. And unlike against the Jets, the Seahawks secondary needs to catch the ball when given the opportunity.
And we've been dropping some passes this year on the defense.
That's what I meant. Is like they had 3 interceptions that just hit the defensive player in the hands, and they just didn't catch it. And you can't do that. They've got to take advantage of those. I mean, it's the Jets, so it didn't matter. But against another team, if they give you a gift, you take it, and they didn't. And I think Haskins is going to give you a couple of gifts, and where I don't know if Alex Smith is going to. He's more likely to take care of the football. And so, I just think that to me, Alex Smith is the guy I don't want to see, but he may play. It's a strained calf. What it's going to do is it's going to hurt his mobility. And against Seattle's front, and the way the Seahawks have been blitzing this year and bringing Jamal Adams and whatnot, like you don't want a quarterback with limited mobility. So, maybe it would be better if it's Smith and a limited mobility guy, because then the pass rush can get to him easily. But what you were saying, it really doesn't matter which. They both have their deficiencies, and the rest of the offense, other than McLaren, is nothing to be afraid of in any way.
I agree. So let's do some predictions, and then let's talk about the NFC West and the NFC playoff picture in general after that. So why don't you go first? What is your expectation for this game? What would you like to see? What do you expect?
I think this game's going to be a lower scoring game because I'm still waiting for Seattle's offense to refine that mojo it did in the first few games of the year, and until I see it, I'm not going to expect it. I do think that Seattle's the better team. They've got the better offense, And they're going to be able to score some points. It's just going to be frustrating because of that front four. So I'm thinking that Seahawks score like 23 and then give up 13.
I think that the Seahawks are going to score at least 30 in this game, because most of the losses that the Washington Football Club has given up, they've allowed, 25 to 30 points on average, and I think Seattle can get there. So I say 30, and in those losses, they're not getting out of the teens. So I think like 30 to 17, something like that. Yeah, and they may not even get there. They may end up the way the Seattle's been playing. They may end up just giving up some field goals.
So I think part of it's going to be game script, because if the Seahawks get out to a fairly early lead and Washington has to go away from their running attack and let their quarterbacks throw it, then they're going to get turnovers, and the Seahawks can run up the score, because that's when Washington's lost and they've given up all those points. A lot of it's because they're such a bad team at on offense. They give up a lot of turnovers, and they allow the other team to run up the score. If it's close and the Seahawks kind of slog their way through the first half, the way you kind of predicted a few minutes ago, it's going to keep the score down, and because it's going to keep Washington from committing the really bad turnovers that they commit when they have to come from behind. And so that's really why I suggested a lower scoring game, is because I expect it to be kind of a slog in the first half. I expect the first half to be really ugly, and then the Seahawks find ways in the third quarter to make some adjustments, get a couple drives put together, and get themselves a lead that they'll take to the end. But until that point, Washington's not going to be taking a lot of risks with the ball, and so they're not going to be giving up those turnovers that would lead to the Seahawks getting a lot of points. That's my prediction, at least. And so that's more of the justification behind it.
Well, let's talk about the playoffs a little bit. Let's talk about the NFC West and where we're at. So Rams win versus the New England Patriots, take them to 9-4. They own the tiebreaker with Seattle. Seattle's also at 9-4 after the Jets game. And then the Arizona Cardinals win against the Giants 26-7, takes them to 7-6. And San Francisco's lost to Washington 23-15.
So Arizona is 2 games behind Seattle with three games left.
Yeah. And so they're near. If we win this game, they're out of the chance to take the division at all.
Yes, in fact,
lose out.
The Seahawks can actually clinch a playoff spot with a win this weekend. And so
good news.
And so the Arizona was they hung with Seattle and the Rams for a chunk of the year, and then they've dropped off. And I just wanted to point out that they're 2 behind with 3 left, and they're looking like they're right at this point. They're fighting to get in as the number 7 seed. That's their destiny.
Number 7 seed or number 6 seed? I think there's only 6.
There's 7 this year.
Is there? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Only the number 1 seed gets a first round bye. And then you have 2, 7, 3, 6, and 4, 5 all play in that first round. So,
the Seahawks just need to keep winning. That sets this, if we win against Washington, we go to 10-4, and the Rams beat, I can't remember who they're playing. They go to 10-4. That Rams game the following week sets up to be fairly huge.
Well, yeah, because at that point, the Rams have the tiebreaker now, but they lose that tiebreaker if Seattle wins in that game. So it comes down to that one, because
and then that 49er game at the end of the year will be big.
It can be, or it could not be, because if Seattle beats the Rams and gets to 11-4, and the Rams are at 10-4, 10-5, you have to look at the other tiebreakers, because they've split the head-to-head, and so then you have to look at all the other tiebreakers, and I don't know where that would put them. It might be that even if Seattle loses and the Rams win, that Seattle still has the tiebreaker over them and has clinched the division. And so at that point, that game means nothing, and you rest everybody.
So the Saints ended up losing too. So in the broader picture, Saints lost to the Philadelphia Eagles 24-21. So they moved them to 10-3. I think the Green Bay Packers are 10-3. So those are the 1-2 seedings, and then the Rams, and then the Washington Football Club, by nature of their first place in the NFC East, are the 4th seed, and then Seattle, the 5th seed currently.
Yep.
And then Tampa Bay 8-5, and then the Cardinals rounded out at 7-6 right now.
So this will be the
fourth.
fourth.
Face the Washington Football Club in Washington if the playoffs were to start today.
Yep. So the Seahawks. This is the last of the NFC East teams that the Seahawks will have faced this year, right? They will played all 4 of them, and when they played all 4 of them, that team was in first place in the division.
Yeah.
Because the Cowboys had the only win in the division when the Seahawks played the Cowboys and beat them. The Eagles were in first place when Seattle played them and beat them. The Giants were in first place when Seattle played them and lost. But they've since gotten beat, and now Washington's in first place as Seattle is taking them on. So that is that's just a weird little bit of statistical anomaly, that you play all 4 teams in a division, and at the time you play them, that team is in first place, which tells you just how awful the division is, because it's just no team wants to win that division. They're just fighting on who could be the worst of the group.
That's so true. I know. So I got a question for you. So if Seattle continues to play, their defense continues to play, regardless of opponent, just very solid, very good. And then their offense kind of turned it around against the Jets a little bit. I know we want to discount that a little bit, and I get that. But if they continue that, I mean, Russell Wilson threw 4 touchdowns. That's a good sign. I know they had an interception, but that was a hell of a play by their defensive back.
So if you want to talk about that interception, because I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah, I don't either.
He had Metcalf open in the corner. And even though the safety is coming over, it's one-on-one in the corner, and you just expect Metcalf to win that. So you throw it up and let him go make the play. Yeah. And it just
Russell Wilson threw it off balance a little bit, and I think that was the issue. But otherwise,
still, I don't have any problem with it. With the
heck
decision.
Of a play with the defensive back,
and then the defensive back just made like a crazy athletic. Like you're not going to make that play 9 times out of 10, But I don't have a problem with the decision. You got one-on-one in a corner with Metcalf, throw it.
Yeah, all the other decisions in the game were awesome.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, what do you think? What do you think about the chances that Seattle has right now of closing out this season on a positive note? Maybe one more loss, or just clean it out. 3 straight wins remaining. Get into the playoffs. Have a bye. Don't have a bye, but have a 3 seed or better in the playoffs. What do you think our chances are this year of kind of getting all the way through this thing?
The way the defense has been playing recently, I think you have to feel a little more optimistic than you did a month ago.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But the way the offense is playing now, I feel less optimistic than I did 6 weeks ago. Because the offense just
you can turn that
been
around in a single game. Russell Wilson. I mean, come on, right?
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. Like I look at the Giants game, and he was horrible. There were guys that were open, and he was double clutching and not throwing it. And when he did, it was late, and he threw interceptions, and it was ugly.
Yeah.
And so
to me, that's his offensive coordinator putting him in a bad position, I think.
Some of it is, and some of it was just he had a bad game, and then he starts thinking rather than playing, and it just wasn't pretty. And so I want to see them put it together. Give me a game. like against Washington here, which is a really good
It'll be a nice
overall
setup, a warm-up game, if you will, for that Rams game.
Yeah, if they can go out against this Washington team, and they don't have to like just move it up and down the field and score 40 points, but if they can string together some drives and maybe hit a big play or two and just not have everything look so dang difficult, which like it did against the Giants and other teams, then I'll feel a lot better. And if not against Washington, then do it against the Rams, because one of those two teams, these are two of the better defensive teams in the NFL. Go out there and play really well against one of those two defenses, and I'll feel really good about this team's chances in the playoffs, even if they don't end up as the 3 seed and they end up as the 5 seed, because as the 5 seed, you get to play either Washington or New York again.
The only bad thing is you got to play at Washington in January.
Yeah, I'm not that worried about it. They're not that good. So
on that field.
I'm just saying, like, to me, I'll take the NFC East winner. Like they're not gonna scare me at all. And
have they done anything with that grass field there? No. At FedEx Field or whatever it's called?
No, it's still
scares the
sand.
Shit out of me.
It's still sand. It's still sand painted green.
Why?
No, because okay, one, because they refuse to get in a position where they're telling teams what to do as far as fields and stuff go. So they don't want to set that precedent. And a lot of it is, if you look at the field early in the season, it's actually in great shape. The grass looks beautiful in September. The problem is that it's the Northeast in January and December. Grass isn't growing. It's all dead. It's brown and dormant by then because everything's frozen. And so this time of year is when it's bad. And they don't do anything about it. They don't lay new sod. They don't try and keep it warm and put the plastic over it and basically greenhouse it in order to keep it alive. They don't do that stuff. They just wait for it to die and paint it green.
Ouch.
Yep.
Right. So that's it. I don't have anything else. Do you have other things you want to discuss? Let's just get out of here then.
Let's get out of here. Let's go get a win against a good defense. That's what I want to see. They're playing a good defensive team. I want the offense to go out and look sharp. Even if it's not the whole game, just at times look sharp. Give me some confidence in the offense going into the playoffs. That's what I want. Go make that happen, Russell Wilson.
Well said. Follow Keith on Twitter, @MyersNFL. I'm MW Seahawk. The show is @Hawks Playbook on Twitter, SeahawksPlaybook.com. Has all of the shows archived, and find us on your favorite podcast app and get us into your feed every week. So until next time, Keith.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is @NW Seahawk. Keith is @MyersNFL. And the show is @Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.